Hi, I'm Alexa Ray Corriea, and this is the Game Maker's Notebook podcast coming to you from Edinburgh at DICE Europe. My next guest needs no introduction. It is legendary designer Josh Sawyer. I'm just going to roll you right into it. Please enjoy. Hello.
Hello.
How are you, Josh?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Coming to you from Edinburgh, DICE Europe, which is cool. I'm excited to talk shop with you.
Yeah.
So I know people have asked you this question before, but this is the question I like to open my episodes with. I also don't think I've ever asked you this question, which is, how did you get here? What was your
plane and then a taxi?
No, silly. I mean, like in the industry.
No. So I played Atari when I was a kid. I played a ton of D&D.
What was your class?
I usually actually played clerics, but I played a lot of different classes. I played a ton of D&D. I played a ton of different tabletop role-playing games. I played a bunch of computer role-playing games. And then I was in college and I played even more tabletop role-playing games and computer role-playing games. And I was pretty convinced that I was going to be I was going to make tabletop games because tabletop role-playing games specifically, because I did it for my friends in college and I didn't kind of understand that it was a job, which is weird. Like I did, but I didn't really. And also in college, I taught myself web design. I was not a very good student. I started as a vocal performance major at the Lawrence Conservatory of Music.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Do you still sing?
Not really. I mean, like just for fun or whatever, but like not in any meaningful capacity. But yeah, I was, that's a very challenging program and I was lazy and I switched over to the college and got a degree in history, but I still wasn't a great student. And I taught myself web design because this was the mid 90s and it was hot. And I taught myself Flash animation, Flash 3.0.
Incredible.
And my friend Michael Donnelly was kind enough to inform me that Black Isle Studios was hiring a webmaster for an unannounced project.
Webmaster.
Yeah, webmaster. And I applied for the job. And it was because I knew Flash. I'd used Flash to make a website for Steve's Tattoo in Madison, Wisconsin, in exchange for tattoos. And
nice.
That work was not good, but it showed that I knew how to do Flash.
Right.
And I got the job and I came out to California and then I worked on the website for Planescape Torment.
Mm-hmm.
I was the webmaster. And then after that, I redesigned the websites for Baldur's Gate 2 and Icewind Dale. And then because I was working so closely with the devs at that time, I impressed upon them that I did know a lot about game design and about the Forgotten Realms and AD&D, like a ton. And I convinced Fergus Urquhart, who is the head of Black Isle, who is now, has been the head of Obsidian forever. But I convinced him to let me do junior design work on Icewind Dale. And so I worked on Icewind Dale with the team there. And then after that, I worked on Icewind Dale 2. I worked on a couple of canceled projects. Things were not going great at Interplay. And then Interplay shut down and a lot of people from Black Isle went to Obsidian, which was forming. And I went to Midway just to kind of try something different, work with a different group of people. I remember that the first day I came into work at Midway, I saw on a whiteboard, someone had written, "Midway, we'll get you halfway there." And I was like, I don't think that's a good sign. And in fact, it was not a good sign. I was there for about a year and a half. And then I talked to some of the Obsidian folks and I went back to Obsidian and I've been there for 20 years. When I first went back, I worked on Neverwinter Nights 2. I worked on a couple of canceled projects. I worked on, I directed Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, and Pentiment. And then I work a little bit on most of the projects. Not all of them, but most of them.
That is quite a pedigree.
Thanks.
Which one's your favorite? Who's your favorite child?
Pentiment.
Why?
That one was made basically completely the way, like, I'm not going to say that there were zero compromises, because there are compromises in making anything.
Of course.
And that's part of what is good about making things. But it wasn't made to fit anyone else's ideas. Like, everyone on the team contributed to it, but I had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted to do. I brought people on board. They changed that vision in healthy ways that made sense and that allowed us to work better together. And I'm just super happy with it. And it was made, I mean, even at the Xbox level, they weren't really, it was a pretty, for Xbox, it's a pretty small budget game. And so they weren't really concerned with how it sold, which is always great to hear. I mean, we have a lot of devs at Obsidian, and it was a 13-person team.
Lovely.
And not all those people are even internal. So basically, it didn't need to make money. It needed to be a good game. And I think it was a very good game.
It was.
I'm very happy with it. Thank you.
Won awards.
It did win awards. So yeah, it's Pentiment. And we had that, it's the longest I've ever worked on a shipped game.
Really?
Which is, 3 years. 3 years from beginning to end. I mean, the first Icewind Dale was a 10-month project. Icewind Dale 2, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Icewind Dale 1 was a 14-month project. Icewind Dale 2 was a 10-month project.
Oh my God.
And then almost everything else, famously Fallout New Vegas was 18 months. So, and then the Pillars games were under 3 years each. One was 2.5 years. One was 2 years and 3 months. So usually I've worked on games that ship real quickly. I mean, I've worked on projects that have been long-term projects. Like Avowed was a very long-term project, but I only worked on it for about the last year.
Right.
So Pentiment, though, had 9 months of pre-production, and then it had 2 years and 3 months of production, and we shipped it. And yeah, it was good.
How do you make a game in 18 months?
Very carefully. No, I mean, so I think this actually has been very helpful to me, is that, Obsidian, Black Isle, less so, but certainly Obsidian, we had a reputation for making sequels and spinoffs to other people's properties with their tech. And so very often we would get, handed, here is code, here are assets, you have this much time and these people, go. And very often we were not familiar with the engine. So,
okay.
Yeah. So like with the Infinity engine, thankfully it was tricky. Icewind Dale was weird because we had used BioWare's Infinity engine. I say I shouldn't, really the Planescape Torment team, of which I was just the webmaster. I was not a developer on it. No stolen glory there. But they used a version of the Infinity engine that branched off from BioWare's much earlier.
Okay.
And that team changed it a lot. And then when we worked on Icewind Dale, we were using like kind of an updated but unfamiliar code base. So a lot of the stuff that the Torment team could do, we couldn't do. So we had to figure that stuff out and make it in like 14 months. And so a lot of it was, doing what BioWare had done, but in our own, with just a spin, in our own sort of way. And then, the same thing with Neverwinter Nights 2, where I think that the team tried to bite off more than they could chew in terms of reworking terrain and pathfinding and the renderer and the entire GUI system. And it was like a lot, but beneath it all, and that caused a lot of problems. Beneath it all, it was BioWare's engine and was making a sequel to their game. And then, New Vegas, we got, well, initially we didn't get code. We just got like the game and like drops of assets. And we didn't have dev kits to work on right away. So we were only using PC builds. We were really just modding it to begin with. But because of that, and because we knew we were only going to have 3 programmers on the project, and we're going to have a lot of designers and a fair number of environment artists and a couple of animators, it was like, okay, so given everything that Bethesda has made, and I've said this a lot, but the Garden of Eden creation kit is very powerful. You can make so much content so quickly if you make content like Bethesda makes content. And so we did, and we just tried to make it to our sort of design sensibility, not fundamentally change how the engine technology worked. Every time we tried to do that, it bit us in the ass, like looping reloads. That was a thing that was bugged for like a year after the game shipped. But it was about basically saying, I said to the team, like, look, we have a clear vision of the type of game we want to make, and we understand what Bethesda's tech does. We are going to change very little about that, and we are going to make great content. We're going to make great content the way that we want to make it. And as long as we focus on that and do not get distracted by trying to do nonsense,
nonsense.
This is not to like pick on anyone. I'm not going to name names, but there was a designer who very early on said, hey, I really want to be able to have companions interject into conversations. This is something that was done in Neverwinter Nights 2. It's been done in a lot of our games. And I said, no, like no fucking way. Like when have you ever seen a character interject in a conversation in Fallout 3? He's like, no. And I'm like, no, we're not doing it. Like there's no mechanism for it. There's no camera tech for it. Like we're just not going to do that.
It's a mess. Yeah.
And he was understandably annoyed by that. And, I think companion interjections are good. That's why we have them in most of our games. But I just said, look, man, we literally do not have time to figure this out. So write good conversations, have great characters. And so the way we'd get around it, because I wrote one of the companions, Arcade, and Arcade, you would go talk to like old family friends of, his father's, and then he wouldn't interject. But as soon as the conversation would end, then Arcade would start a conversation with you. And then you would have a one-on-one with him. That probably would have worked smoother if he had been involved in the NPC's conversation, but we couldn't. So I was just like, just work around it. And I think people, still found all of those conversations very compelling because I think the designers just focused on write good,
write good,
make good quests and content.
Will it be, this is a little bit of a segue and then I want to jump back. Will it be weird for you to see the new Fallout season go to New Vegas?
Like yes and no. I mean,
talking about the TV show, by the way.
Yeah, the show. Yeah, I mean, it's the trailer. I mean, they're really using it a lot, because
it looks that way. Yeah,
I knew at the end of season 1 that they were going to New Vegas.
Yeah, there's the
spoilers.
sign.
Yeah, he's clearly there, and the Lucky 38's there. But I wasn't sure. Like, oh, is this just like a ref, and they're going to stop and they're going to leave? But it looks like it's kind of like there. It's fine. I think, I don't know. I have, maybe a different attitude towards a lot of this stuff than some people I know who've been involved in making either IPs or entries into IPs. So, when I came to Black Isle, I wanted to work on a Fallout game.
Okay.
But I played Fallout 1 and 2 as just a college kid.
Yeah.
I was not in the game industry. And I wanted to work on Fallout 3 at Black Isle, Van Buren, which we started, and then Black Isle collapsed. So I didn't think I was ever going to be able to work on Fallout again. And then when we had the chance to make New Vegas, we got to bring back a lot of those ideas that a lot of us had for Van Buren, and then new ideas. And I considered it like, this is a second chance that I never thought I would have had. I mean, I considered myself lucky to even work on a canceled Fallout game just because it's a cool IP.
Yeah.
And it was never mine. Like it's not my, and some people have talked to me about this for like Pillars of Eternity, which, many designers have contributed to, but I will say that, the overall tone and style of Pillars, I defined a lot of that stuff, but it is also not mine. It does not belong to me. And I don't feel ownership over it. I will give my opinion. Like, I think this is probably a good direction to take the IP or not great direction. And I feel the same way about Fallout, but also it was never mine. So who cares what my opinion is? So, it's interesting. It's cool, but I don't, it's not like I have Jacob wrestling with the angel inside of me about it. Like I'm not torn up. It's kind of like, oh, cool. Like hope people like it.
Yeah.
Great.
You're not, it sounds like you are not precious about the not the work you do. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if you're working on someone else's IP, if you're making something, you're not like, no, this was my
you're not
Pillars
doing
of
it
Eternity.
right. You're not doing it
Yeah.
right. I mean, and to be honest, like, you know, there are times at Obsidian where if I think something in Pillars is really kind of off,
yeah,
and it's not a matter of taste, sometimes I'll just say like, hey, in the first 2 games, you know, this is like Avowed related. I'll say like, hey, in the first 2 games, we did this thing this way for these reasons. Can you explain why you don't want to do that way? And because maybe the way that we did it wasn't even good in the first place, but usually I just kind of dig and say like, you know, especially if it's something really distinctive about the setting.
Yeah.
It's a characteristic of it. If you're using the IP, I do feel like you should, at least to yourself, justify why you're not using an element of the IP, or you should question, why am I using the IP?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not my call, but sometimes I'll say like, I don't really think this is like why people like this IP or like don't like it. And I don't, but it's not like from a me perspective. It's more like, this is what's established and this is what the audience is familiar with. And maybe it sucks and you should change it, but I want to hear you articulate what the problem is and why this solves it.
Yeah. You've worked on quite a few IP. When you're a writer and you're coming in and you're working on someone else's IP, how should you treat the situation? Like, what is your advice for that?
Someone earlier today was talking about, working an IP. And I do think we don't always have the choice about like work on something that you love, but I will say that you have to find something to love in it and work on that thing that you love. Cause I've worked in IPs. I mean, I've said this before and I don't feel shy about saying it. Like there's a lot of stuff in D&D that I really do not like. But there's a lot of stuff in D&D that I do like. And, I try to focus on the stuff that I like when I've had to work in it. And like the stuff I don't like is there. And I don't try to passive aggressively like subvert it or whatever.
Sure.
I just kind of accept like, okay, this is a thing that is not my thing, but then here's all this other stuff that I'm into.
Yeah.
And let me see what I can get out of it. So I do think you have to find the things that you love and the things that interest you that you want to explore in the IP.
Yeah.
And also I think it's worthwhile to understand even the things that you don't like within it. Why do other people like it?
Okay.
If you don't understand that, then working around it is going to be a difficult thing. I'll just say this for like New Vegas. Sorry, people of Las Vegas. I don't really like Las Vegas as a city.
It's rough.
And I hate casino gambling. I'm not going to try to pretend like I'm the ultimate rationalist, but I don't, the appeal of gambling is completely lost on me. But I knew that if we didn't have gambling games, casino games, then people would be bummed. And so if I wanted to be a big brat, I could be like, there's no casino games. But I was like, okay, look, like what do people like about this? How can we emulate this? How can I make this like enjoyable for people and present well? And I had to sort of embrace that and understand what's the appeal here so I can try to make that rewarding for the player. I do think sort of like diving in and really, really trying to soak in the IP is good. And not just the main entries, but also like spinoffs and fan fiction is actually.
Ooh, boy.
Well, the thing is, I think Emma Kidwell gave a talk. Where was that?
GDC this year.
GDC, yeah. She's like all IP writing is fan fiction, basically.
Yeah, it's
licensed fan fiction.
It's also how for a lot of us that aren't, I am not a professionally trained writer. It was just a skill I picked up and honed on my own. I know that sounds so unhumble, but that's just the truth. I wrote fucking fan fiction for eons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a trained writer either. When I started in the industry, I'm not going to say that there were no specific writers, but like usually we were designers
and then you wrote,
and writing dialogue was part of what we did. And I don't think the dialogue I wrote initially was any good, but now it is better. But yeah, like IP writing is effectively licensed fan fiction. So yes, there's a lot of bad fan fiction. There's also a lot of bad licensed IP writing.
Yes.
Like there's, I'm not going to call out anything, but like you can certainly go to plenty of IPs and look at what's been published either in comics or in novelizations or whatever, and they're not well written and they don't treat the IP well. So look, like, there's nothing wrong with, there's a lot of fan fiction that is very well written. And not only is it very respectful to the IP, but really the people who write it are very passionate about expanding the boundaries of the universe in a way that is consonant with what's been established. And it also, the popularity of those things show where the fans' attitudes are sort of headed. So, yeah, I do think that sort of stuff is all very important.
Do you read a lot of fan fiction?
No, not really.
Have you ever? Have
I ever read? Yes, I have.
Have you ever read it for the stuff that you've worked on?
Yeah, a little bit. Like usually, a lot of what I look at, maybe it's because it's easier to consume, like in quick chunks, is usually like fan art. I get really stoked about.
Yeah.
So I love fan art, and the fan fiction. I have read some of it, but not a lot of it, to be honest.
Yeah. I read a lot of Call of Duty fan fiction.
Nice.
For research. That was a hole I never thought I would go down, and it's definitely the weirdest hole. And I mentioned it in my GDC talk as well. You mentioned that there are things about D&D that you don't love and things that you do. To you, for you, like I personally find D&D, I've had a hard time getting into it, which feels like a no-brainer for me because I'm super into RPGs. I'm into all that stuff. It feels like, oh, I would be, everyone asking me to DM and me being like, I'm so fucking overwhelmed. There's so much shit here. What about D&D to you is compelling?
I think that the most compelling thing about D&D is it is kind of like the lingua franca of tabletop role-playing games. Like it is ubiquitous within the tabletop RPG community. So if you grab just a random assortment of tabletop role-playing people, it is very likely that the most of them, or the most commonly played system among them, is going to be D&D. And it is more likely that people will have those books and be familiar with the conventions of whatever fucking edition you're on. And then that's why inertia, it kind of becomes the de facto thing that people play. Even if people are not individually jazzed about playing it.
Yeah.
If people start proposing, like Lancer or Call of Cthulhu or all these other sort of games, or, something newer like Morkborg or something like that, people are like, what the fuck is that? Like there's like no familiarity. They're a lot more niche. Yeah. And it's very difficult to get a group of people that are all on board.
Yeah.
And with D&D, very often people will kind of go like, sure.
Okay.
Like, sure, we can play that. And it's like, it's pretty easy to get into. The conventions are pretty like mainstream, and D20, even though I think it's a fucking terrible die for your main resolution mechanics, people get it and they get, oh, I rolled a 20. Oh my God. Yay. Wow. I'm so excited. Nothing is, no mechanical advantage is better than the thrill of rolling a D20. So we're just going to keep using this die forever. Great.
I have only played D&D exactly once. It was in 2015, and it was a filmed, live streamed,
nice Critical
Role one shot.
Mm-hmm.
I am a canonical one shot character.
Sweet.
I was a orc named Taco, Tako.
Nice.
It was great.
Very good.
1,000 years ago. That's the one time I played D&D, and every time I start, I fall off. Do you feel like, for people that want to get into RPG writing or game writing or whatever, I've gotten advice in the past from other people and be like, oh, like when I was starting out, they're like, well, try DMing for D&D, or like read D&D, try D&D. Do you think that's like, I know we talked about tabletop being a pretty good place to start, but do you think it's good place to start?
I do, but I think that it needs more contextualization. I think that advice needs to be contextualized. So
just DM, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's especially if you've never played D&D before, saying run a game is like, dude, calm down. And the thing is, because there are systems that are so straightforward where if you kind of get the narrative like vibe that they're going for, the mechanics are not very difficult. D&D, no edition of D&D is actually that easy to DM.
No.
Yeah, it's in a weird zone of it's not all that complicated, but it is kind of esoteric because D&D has its own quirks. But anyway, what I would say is as a player playing D&D, you especially, and it does take the right group of players, but players fuck around. And when you have a DM, I mean, that's why you play it. Like if it were just a war game, then you would just play a war game. That's not. And D&D at its heart is still an old war game, which is one of the weirder things about it. Because when you watch things, when you watch a lot of the popular, podcasts and YouTube channels about playing, the mechanics basically are gone.
Yeah.
It's all the trappings of it. So it's weird because the mechanics itself come from a 1970s war game.
Yeah.
And so much of it is still based in wargaming, but so many other people play it for collaborative storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in the more dynamic and fun kind of campaigns, that's why people dig it, is because the players are like, I remember this time we were playing in college where we were kind of picking on the DM a little bit because he was really loath to ever kill anyone's character. And
no fun.
Well, I agree. And I'm not like a player slaughterer, but I will kill player characters. But he really never liked doing it. And in fact had stated like that he thought it was kind of bad. So we would push the limits. And that in itself was very fun, even though he got very frustrated with it. Like I remember we went in and we were talking to this was like the mayor of the town. And I don't remember. It was like one of us said like, we're not doing that unless you give us like this. And he was like, that's like way too much. That's ridiculous. And I like slapped him.
Like physically? Like actually slapped him?
Not the DM, but like the mayor.
The character.
The mayor.
See, I thought you like slapped your DM.
No. We're not getting
I wouldn't have been surprised.
Gotten into it. No, I would not do that. But like, and then the guards like got aggro on us, and then we started like fireballing the place. And like, we basically just went completely off the rails. But the DM, he wouldn't kill us, but he kept changing the story, to his credit, even though I do think it's silly to not kill characters no matter what they do. But he kept moving the story to adapt to what we're doing. And that's why it is fun.
Okay.
And I think the thing is, what I think the value in that for someone who works on role-playing games, the sort of which Obsidian makes anyway, is that we often say like, imagine that the player goes off. Or like, what do you think in the situation the player might do that's really kind of funny or crazy?
Yeah.
And can we support that option? I think Larian does a very good job of that. Which is why it's such a great adaptation of a tabletop experience where you're like, whoa, like you can do a thing as though I were in tabletop. And so I think playing with a group of you have to have a group of players that are in that mindset. And then you have to have a DM where they understand that they have a scenario that they want to run, but they're here to kind of adjudicate and go with the flow, which isn't to do whatever the players want, but to create new and entertaining and interesting scenarios for the players to try to role play out of, role play mechanically and role play, personality wise through. And that's where the fun in tabletop role playing games are. And that's why I think it's good to play. And once you get comfortable, then DM, because if you're a designer, it's not the same as being a DM. And I will say, like, I don't even know if I'm in the top 5 DMs at Obsidian. Like when I DM, the way I approach it is much more mechanical. I'm a much more systems oriented person as a tabletop designer. And the other DMs are much more like they do the voices, and they do like they're like way into it. I'm not good at it. And it's like, fine. But as a designer, you are kind of an Obsidian role-playing game designer. You are kind of like the DM for that quest and that area. And so you're thinking about, what if the player fucks around? What if the player wants to climb up the wall? What if the player wants to poison this guy? Or like whatever, like think about all these different ways that a player would want to do it. And usually the times when I wind up crying and shaking my head at Obsidian is when either I find a thing that I can do, but it's not not really supported, or I'll say, hey, it would be really cool if in this situation you let the player do this and it's not like really expensive.
Yeah.
And the designer says like, oh, I'll like, basically they'll just kind of like say, well, I'll make sure that they can't do that. I'm like, you don't get it, buddy. Like that's the wrong answer.
No.
And like, there are resources and blah, blah, whatever. We all have to deal with constraints, but we make games that are expensive in part because there's lots of ways to do things and players can go ham.
You've worked on a lot of RPGs. To you, what is RPG writing about? If someone marches up to you and says, I want to write for an RPG, what would you tell them they need to do?
I do think they need to think about, I think the distinctive thing about role-playing game writing is that there is a meaningful range of responses in the player stack.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to vary from project to project, that range. And it's going to range tonally. It's going to range into style of writing.
Mm-hmm.
But the role-playing aspect of it is, given a character with a certain level of definition, and that can be as open as like, I'm a complete blank slate. I could be any of these species or any of these classes in something like BG3
mm-hmm.
to like, I am Geralt of Rivia, or I am V, or I am Shepherd, where there's different levels of definition.
Yeah.
But within that, there's a level of constraint, and then there's a range of attitudes and voices. And players want to feel like there's a meaningful range, that there are surprises, things that like shock them or make them laugh.
Yeah.
Often the presence of an option that is supported but won't be picked is entertainment enough. Like if you see that you can say something super outlandish and it has an effect, the player doesn't have to pick it to find it funny that it's there.
Sure.
And also a range of responses that are keyed off of mechanics that you can, like how you build your character mechanically. So for example, like Geralt, there's certainly a range of responses. Geralt has a certain range of voice, he's never going to really sound like silly.
Right.
There's
fun if he was, though.
There's a certain gruffness to him, but there's still a range of expression and, within his, personality. But then there are different ways you could build a character where you could see different things unlocking mechanically based on that build. Then in something like PG3, it's even more wide open where you could be all these different alignments. And it's very difficult actually to write for things that are that expansive.
Yes.
But that's kind of the challenge, is that a lot of people will kind of focus on the NPC's voice, which is very important, but that's a very traditional thing. Like, here's a character, build their voice and express it. And they'll kind of treat the player stack as like, oh yeah, yes, no, maybe so. And it all kind of like roots to the same shit. And there's no surprises. There's nothing fresh. And also there needs to be variety, visual variety. Cause that's the other thing, is like when you look at the stack, if it just becomes like a mass of words, kind of all the same length, all the same kind of, there's an art to it. And that's actually where the challenge is. It's writing the stack, seeing how it opens up and closes based on options that the player is intrigued by, like, oh shit, if I put like a few more points in intellect, I like would have had something there. Or like, oh, I put a few points in charisma and that unlocked this thing and I got a really funny response. And then that unlocked either a different way through, or it made the guy super mad and it was funny, or whatever that is. But it's about writing that stack and seeing how the range of character expression plays off of the established character voice, the NPC voice, and how you kind of vibe with that in an individual conversation, but then over the course of the entire game.
You basically taught yourself.
Yeah,
how to write like this.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I sort of taught myself, but also, like I I didn't work on Torment, but certainly a lot of the designers who worked on Torment were my peers on Icewind Dale. And it wasn't like they formally were sitting down and mentoring me, but I would like look at how they wrote.
Osmosis.
Yeah. And like, oh, they write stacks like this, and that we're all constrained by the same tools. Like we had these templates that we would write within, and that helped shape how we would, structure dialogues. The tools they both liberate and constrain how the mind shapes, like moving from node to node and how you build reply stacks and stuff like that. And, so I learned sort of the house style, more or less, of Black Isle. And then after that, then it was sort of like seeing how players responded to it, iterating within a project, and then from project to project. And also, of course, looking at our competitors, looking at BioWare, looking at Bethesda, now looking at Larian, stuff like that, and seeing like, how did they do it? What do we like about it? What do we not like about it? Thinking about the expense of supporting those things, because we all have different budgets and schedules and things like that. So
your expertise is in RPG games, and you're a design director now.
Yes.
When you're starting to work on one, like where do you start in your brain? Like where does that start?
I mean, it varies a lot. I mean, certainly there's a lot of work that we've done that's work for hire. So it starts with someone else's idea. Like New Vegas, it wasn't my idea. It was Chris Avalon's idea. Like Fergus, I think, had talked to someone at Bethesda about maybe doing a Fallout thing. And then Avalon wrote up this pitch about, and forgive me if I get this wrong, but it's basically, it starts with you being shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave. And I can't take any credit for that. And John Gonzalez, who was our creative lead on the project, he built out Mr. House and all this other stuff. But like the core hook of it was not my idea. And it was something that Fergus Urquhart, my boss, came to me and said, hey, we want you to direct this. Here's the pitch that we got Bethesda interested in, run with it. And so in that case, a lot of things were constrained for me from the beginning. For Pillars of Eternity, it was the constraints of the Infinity Engine games and the fact that we were crowdfunded. So we didn't have a publisher to answer to, but we did have, tens of thousands of backers. And then the expectations of D&D and Forgotten Realms and all that stuff. And some of that we, for example, we don't have halflings or gnomes or orcs, but we do have Orlins, who are little guys, little furry guys. And then we have Amawa, who are big guys, because we're kind of like, well, are people super attached to orcs, or are they super attached to halflings or gnomes? Probably not. I mean, some players are, but they probably want little guys and big guys. Yeah. And we kept elves and dwarves, which are not original, but a lot of people want to play elves and some people want to play dwarves.
Do love me a dwarf.
So, it's sort of like thinking about what are the audience expectations? What are the things where we can cleave to them so they have their nuggies?
The chicken nuggies.
Their delicious chicken nuggies. The comfort food, so they don't make a frowny face.
Not nuggets, nuggies specifically.
Yeah, nuggies. And then mom chicken nuggies. And then what are the areas where we can kind of just make new stuff, and maybe they won't dig it very much. No. Like maybe they'll be like, I think it's stupid. It's like, well, okay, but we get to create some new things and give a little bit of new stuff. And some people will dig it and some people won't. That's okay. So it kind of depends on the constraints. Like with Pentiment, it was, I was like, I know that it's going to be a small game. I know that it's going to be mechanically similar to Night in the Woods without the platforming. So it's just walking around and talking. And then it was kind of like thinking about the art style with Hannah Kennedy, who did an amazing job as our art director. So it depends a lot on the constraints, scope constraints, stylistic constraints, genre constraints, expectations of the audience, expectations of, the publisher. And then I kind of think from there, and then, depending on the game, that also will change the expectation of the protagonist and how they're defined. So for example, in a D&D-like game where you have lots of different species and lots of different classes, it's a lot harder to sell the audience on the idea that you have a specific character you're playing. So they kind of are really used to being a blank slate. Baldur's Gate 1, because they're used to D&D. That's when I come to play D&D, I make my own character from nothing. I can be whatever gender, I can be whatever species, whatever class, look however I want. Whereas something like The Witcher or Mass Effect is even better example. Like you're a shepherd, you're a human, and classes don't exist, so don't complain about that really. Or actually, it's not classes don't exist, but attributes don't exist, so you don't have ability scores. And then you do have classes, but they're kind of like loosey-goosey, and like the landscape, it's sci-fi, and so you don't have the familiarity of D&D, so you can't like make a frowny face about it. BioWare had a lot more flexibility to say like, yeah, you're kind of more defined here, and we're not going to do the exact same things mechanically as you might see in a D&D game, so just kind of deal with it. But player expectation drive a lot of that.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about someone was saying, people looked at Avowed and expected it to be like Skyrim, which is unfair.
Yes.
I said, sure, except that every fucking person sees a first-person fantasy game and goes, it must be like Skyrim.
Yeah.
And you can say it's unfair, but it doesn't matter. That's what they all do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so whether you cleave to or tear away from the expectation, you have to like understand the expectation and then deal with it instead of ignoring it. Because if you ignore it, then usually you're going to get bit in the ass. Why
do you think so many people hold Skyrim to that standard?
Because like 20 million people played it. I genuinely think like, I think it's just, it's a, million, and maybe even more than that, but like tens of millions of people have played that game.
Yeah.
And there aren't actually a ton of comparable games in the space. Really? First person fantasy, single player, open world games. There's 60?
60, we've been corrected. 60 million people have played Skyrim.
A lot of platforms. So when you have that much cultural familiarity across so many players, and you don't really have that many games that are directly comparable, then people are going to just kind of say, well, and especially now that it's a 14-year-old game at this point. So it's been around a long time. It's been played by a zillion people over and over and over again. And so there's kind of, whether you think it's fair or not, they're just like, this is the kind of standard bearer within the genre.
Yeah.
So again, whether you think it's fair or not, you have to sort of understand and respond to. And the thing is, it's not like it was a surprise. Like with Avowed, like people were constantly comparing it to Skyrim. Man. And we were like, it's not really like it. But they kept saying it and they kept comparing it. So again, it kind of goes back to, you don't have to like it, but you do have to sort of understand it and then figure out how to deal with that expectation. Even if you're subverting it, you can do that, but you have to do it conscientiously, I think.
Going off of that, do you think what is the balance in, because sometimes as developers, we're told like, players don't know what they want. We have to tell them what they want or figure out what they want, depending on what kind of game you're working on, what company you're working for. What is the balance of listening to the community and your players and your audience and working on this thing that is your vision or whatever? Like, what is that balance there to you?
Well, I think there's an element now where you do have to, the first thing is weed out bad faith commentary. Because there's a lot of people where they hate you
all the time,
or they don't actually like the genre. And I think that this is something, well, no, but this is a thing where I used to see, like in RPGs, it used to be there, RPGs are big now. I'm not going to say they're ever like small, but certainly when I started in the industry, I would see people who like playing FPSs or things like that. And they're like, this sucks. I'm like, just don't play it, crybaby. Like,
it's not your jam. Like, it's okay.
Fine, that's okay. But it's sort of like, is the criticism coming from within the house, or is it like, or is it just someone walking by saying like RPGs suck? And I'm like, okay, well then your specific feedback about this RPG is not incredibly valuable to us.
Yes.
So I do feel like, one, if there are people that just fundamentally hate you, probably don't have to listen to them. If it's people that don't dig the genre, okay, noted, like continue not liking the genre. But then, then it's sort of like, okay, if this is a good faith commentary from someone that likes games in this type and they don't fundamentally hate your guts, then I think that usually the important thing is when they say they don't like something, that is completely valid. Anything that is more detailed than that, below that, is of questionable validity. Like the more detailed it gets, the less likely it is to be valid, especially to the point where they say, and what you should do to fix it is this.
Oh, yeah.
That's usually where you're like, okay, you're wrong. But, you know, almost always, if you have people within who are like, we're RPG people and we're playing this game and we don't like how the stats work. Like, they don't like it. And if we assume they're speaking in good faith, again, there are actually many times where I'll say, that is dumb, but okay. Like, right? Like, because I have very different tastes from a lot of other people.
Sure.
I'm not saying they're better or worse, but like, I like RPGs to be a specific way, and often I design them in that way, but that often does not align with a lot of other players in the genre. And so sometimes I think your complaints are bad and dumb. I don't like them, but I still will do something about it.
Can you provide a example of a time you did that?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with like abilities, like how abilities are tuned or how stats are tuned.
Okay.
Very often, you know, people will say, I do or don't like how this is balanced or how this is tuned. And I will think that they're having, like, their perception of what's going on is not really accurate to the magnitude of what's really happening. But also I can make a change that addresses their complaint in a genuine, not like a cynical, shitty way. I'll be like, okay, like, I think you are misanalyzing what the problem is, but your negative experience is valid. The thing you're saying it is wrong. It's actually this other thing. I don't have to explain that to you because I know that's what it is. Yeah. And there's no point in arguing with you, but I can still fix it. So like, you know, very often, for example, people will say like the RNG is screwed up. Every single project, because random number generation is a part of almost every RPG I've worked on.
You're right. And
on almost every project, players will say, RNG's fucked up. Like die rolls are fucked up. I'm like, no. And literally never has it ever been fucked up. It's, you're wrong. There's something else that's not right. Or
but it's not the RNG.
Or you don't understand. What's up?
But it's not the RNG.
It's not the RNG.
It's R. It's random.
It's random. And we run, you know, and sometimes we're pushed to run tests and we confirm, yes, it is actually random. But, you know, for example, and this was actually testers. These weren't players. But way back in the day on Icewind Dale 2. So Icewind Dale 1 was 2nd edition D&D. Icewind Dale 2 was 3rd edition D&D.
Okay.
There's a change, backstab to sneak attack. Backstab is a multiplier. So you stab someone, you roll a D, let's say 8, roll longsword, roll an 8-sided die, and then you multiply that by your backstab multiplier, and then you add a bonus to it. So if you roll an 8-sided die, there is an equal chance of rolling an 8 as a 1. If you roll an 8 and you multiply that by 5, it's 40 points damage. Ooh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
The difference is sneak attack in 3rd edition is you add 6-sided dice. You add more dice. So it'll get to the point where you have 15d6 that you're rolling, and the theoretical maximum of that is 90.
Yeah.
And we got these bugs that were saying it never rolls 90. I'm like, do you understand how probability works? And they're like, yeah, it should come up sometimes. I'm like, when your bones turn to fucking dust, dude, like it's not going to come up. You're rolling 15 dice and waiting for all of them to come up 6. And
it's a low probability.
It's literally million. Like it's very tiny. The more dice you're rolling, the less likely everything comes up, you know, a specific number. So their complaint was, I want the big damage number. And it was like, well, that doesn't really work that way. And we tried to address it with like other things, but it was one of those things where like your complaint is not invalid, but your understanding of the mechanic is not correct.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to explain that stuff. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I've had is I generally like kind of mechanically crunchy and fiddly things. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're good. And players can very easily like misunderstand them, not because they're like dummies, but it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of math happening. And, you know, like in Deadfire, I implemented an armor system, which I still believe, if you understand how it works, is just a better armor system than the first game had.
Sure.
But it's not easy to get. So if you don't get it, you're going to be real frustrated and real mad. And sometimes you have to accept, like, even if this is theoretically better, in practice it is not better because players don't understand it. Yeah. And so it leads to these situations where I'll kind of have to just swallow my pride and go like, I know in my heart that this is good, but it's not good for this game. And it's just not working.
Yeah.
And everyone, like, I can be theoretically right and everyone will complain and say I'm a dummy and like, okay, like they're not going to like the game.
Yeah.
And they're going to think I'm stupid and they're right. So at a certain point I have to accept, like, mechanically, even if I don't address the specific thing that they're talking about in the specific way, it's very foolish to just persist in saying they're all just being dumb and
Skill
I'm actually
issue.
Right. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
So it's a difficult balancing act, but I do think like you do have to read. I don't think you have to respond. I do think you have to read what people are talking about and talk about it internally and think about it. Yeah. And I'm never going to not be spicy about it, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do something about it.
Sure.
Because I think at a certain point, or you can just accept, like, okay, everyone's going to hate you and think this is bad. But then, and you can do that. I mean, my father is a bronze sculptor and he's a very opinionated guy and he believes that he is the artist. And so sometimes people will say, I don't want this. And he's like,
yes, you do.
I don't care. And you can do that. Just don't expect anyone to pay you again for it. And that's the same with games. Like I can be a stubborn jackass and ignore feedback. But you know, I can only do that so much before people are like, this guy doesn't fucking listen to anybody and he doesn't really respect players. So.
Well, games like that also have, like, there's on the player side, there's a bit of a learning curve.
There is. And and also, yeah, it's a tricky thing because there are I would say, I feel like RPGs now have, people come to them for a lot of different things. I never came to RPGs for romance. And it's something, I don't really come to games. I don't really come to games for romance. But a lot of players now do.
Yes.
Like they just do. Yes. And I come to them for killing.
Yeah.
And
for killing.
Stats.
Stomping.
And
math.
Fiddling. And micromanaging shit. And some other players also do. And then other people come to it because they like the aesthetic and they like the vibes. And so different people want different things and none of them is completely dominant. And, you know, I will tend to err on the side of making things mechanically crunchier and more, you know, intricate. And some of the fans really like that. Some of them, even if they like that, will say that I'm bad at it, which is fine. But then there are players where they're like, I'm not into this at all. Like I want sexy time or I want just kind of vibes and I'll do a little bit of math, but not very much, please. So
just a little math, just a smidge.
Yeah, people come to it for all different sorts of reasons. So
on the subject of romance in games, I feel like I agree with you. I never came to RPGs for romance sexy times. I like having control over something in my life. And so that's why I play RPGs. But like, is it weird to you? You don't like them either, but isn't it weird to you that we've like, it's essentially gamifying a relationship. Like if you bring this person the right trinket at the right time and you do the thing and you save their hometown, they'll like put out. That's basically what that is.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different ways to handle it. And there are like, it's become a lot more nuanced than that, I think, in a lot of games now.
In some.
But I mean, I guess if let's take the sex aspect out of it, just because I think that it
relationship.
Sure. Like you could reduce all relationships to you do a thing and you give them a thing and then a thing happens. Like, yeah, that's games. That's logic,
yeah,
right? That's how everything operates. So sex is just a component of that. And I do think that some games, the way they handle romance becomes very formulaic, and that does kind of feel odd. But I think that the games that are doing romance now, well, from my perspective as someone who's not super into romance, it is usually more nuanced, or there's more variety, let's say. So there's a bunch of romanceable characters. They're not all romanceable in the same way.
Yeah.
It is something that I don't inherently dislike. It's not why I came into RPGs, and it's not what I look for in RPGs. And so it's taken me a long time to sort of try to understand where people are coming from. And also different people want different things out of it.
Yeah.
Very much so. And it's just sort of a learning curve. And I'm not actually opposed to doing romances in RPGs, but
not your favorite.
I certainly don't want to do them in a way that feels very formulaic.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think love or sex are things that shouldn't be in games or RPGs. I mean, Pentiment had love was like part of a lot of the storylines. You can hook up with a nun, which, by the way, like everyone immediately was like,
hell yeah,
let me hook up with the sexy nun. So I'm not opposed to any of that. It's just one of those things where I feel like I'm a stranger in a strange land, and I'm still trying to figure out the way that I want to do it. I don't want to do it in a way, because sometimes, we all get kind of like, what's the right, like maybe petty, or like, I'm going to do it the right way. And it's like, that's the wrong fucking attitude, because the way you think is good, the players are going to be like, eat shit. Like like, what's the point then? Like, that's just being petty and stupid. And so I have to check those instincts and be like, try to be true to myself and say, like, players want this thing. What is a way that I could approach this where I feel good about doing it? I feel like it's being done in a way that I think is cool and interesting. And also the audience, maybe not everyone will come along with it, but that it's not being done out of spite, and it's not being done to like leave those players behind.
Yeah,
it's sort of like, here's my take on this. Like, I'm trying to understand what this audience wants, but I'm trying to also show them a way that I would like to do it that feels true to just my creative sensibilities. So, which is difficult.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
You were like, that's difficult.
Oh no, it's difficult to try to approach, the tastes of someone that are very unfamiliar to you.
Sure. Okay.
And then make a thing that fulfills that in a way that feels true to you, instead of trying to mimic something that someone else does in a way that you don't really get or vibe with.
Yeah. So what are your favorite RPGs? Like, what are the ones that you're like, this inspired me, or this was
I really still go back to, I've traditionally said Fallout, the original Fallout, Darklands, which is a more obscure game, and Pool of Radiance, which is one of the first AD&D games, like sort of tactical games. And I wouldn't say I still love Pool of Radiance, and it's really sort of seared into my memory. I don't necessarily feel like I pull a lot from it anymore, but Fallout I still do. Like, a lot of people praised sort of the open structure of New Vegas. I just copied Fallout 1. I really did. Fallout 1, you have to go look for a water chip, and you are sent on this, like, go here, it's not there. Okay, now follow this lead, now follow this lead, now follow this lead. And eventually you get to the necropolis, spoilers, and you get the water chip, and then you get a new crisis, and eventually you get to the cathedral, and you follow a series of steps. But the open world, you can leave Vault 13 and you can go directly to the necropolis. You can go directly to the necropolis and get the water chip. And you can then go, I can't remember if you can go directly to the cathedral before that. But anyway, the point is, it's an information chain where you can skip steps in the chain, because the map is all black. Like, you don't know where anything is. But if you have that meta knowledge, you can speedrun it, and the game completely allows it, which feels very cool. And so finding Benny is the water chip. And he went that away, or they went that away. I can't remember the name of the quest of my own game anymore. But basically we saw him go here. We saw him go here. We saw him go here. And you go around the horn, and then eventually you get to the strip, spoilers. And then Benny's at the top. Or if you leave Goodsprings and go directly to the strip by whatever means possible, Benny is also still at the tops, and you don't have to do it. And you can go back and do all that content out of order. It's completely fine. But like, I really did feel, and one, like the ability to kill anyone in the game, I thought was really cool. Also to not, if I recall correctly, you didn't have to kill anybody. You could ghost it and just stealth around. Those are principles that I just took over to New Vegas from Fallout 1. And it goes back to that role-playing thing of like, we're all crazy. We're murderers. Like we're gonna just, I'm going to slap the mayor and fireball City Hall. Or like, no, I'm going to do it the super ghost way and not kill anyone and feel super clever about it. And the fact that they have the karma system, which, kind of while imperfect, I can play as a good character. I can play as an evil character. I get different endings. That was like a big thing where I played through the whole game. I got a good ending because I just was playing a good character. And then I went online and I saw people saying like, oh, the evil ending is so crazy. I was like, what? So I went back and I didn't replay it. I actually loaded up my save and I went through the world and I killed every innocent NPC.
And you did it. You just tested it.
Yeah. And then I went to the end and I got the evil ending because I got negative karma. So, but it was like, and then, the open skill system and the fact that not all the skills are represented well. Like I think outdoorsman is not, but there's a lot of use of like, I can use science. I can use all these skills in conversation. And so that was really influential on me. And then Darklands is a 1992, basically open world role-playing game set in 15th century Germany, but it's mythic Germany. So like the myths of that period are real and like witches are real and alchemy works and there are mythical monsters in the woods and stuff like that. And it was just very open and very unusual. And mechanically it was very different from other RPGs I had played. And so I think often about the fact that they sort of made this very oddball RPG. That being said, there were a lot of oddball RPGs at that time. Things like Magic Candle and stuff like that. But it just kind of stuck with me about how cool it was that they chose to make a game that didn't do the things mechanically that D&D or most other RPGs did. They just made something that felt very true to 15th century Germany. And that was really cool.
One last question, and it is an advice question.
Sure.
So as you pointed out yesterday in your dice conversation, turn-based is back, baby. Like it's making a resurgence. I don't think it ever really left. I think we're just paying it. I mean, us sickos have always been here that have enjoyed turn-based, but now they're making more of them. And I think we'll probably see a lot more studios, small teams, whatever, trying to make an RPG. So what is your advice for new teams wanting to take a crack at making an RPG?
Talk to Larian or the Expedition team. I've never worked on a turn-based RPG, actually. I've never
not just turn-based, but in general. I feel like we're going to see more RPGs.
RPGs.
Period.
Yeah. Geez, I do think that a compelling world and visual style are like, whether it's sci-fi or proper fantasy is part of it. There's a fantastic world. I mean, maybe that seems obvious, but there is sort of an aesthetic that has to pull people in.
Yeah.
Whether you're making a defined character or a character with a sort of more blank slate, there's a range of expression. People play RPGs to express themselves mechanically and personality wise and aesthetically. And so thinking about the type of RPG you're making and how does the type of RPG you're making compare to other RPGs, that will probably drive the expectation of the audience. Doesn't mean you have to do the thing that they expect, but again, you have to deal with that expectation.
Okay.
Then when you're defining that central character, think about what is the range of types of characters that you want to support, and then what is the range of voices, and think about how much you really want to let players mess with the story, break the story positively. Like, yes, you can break it, but we will let you keep playing in a way that feels satisfying and cool. There's lots of different ways that people think about RPGs and lots of different styles of RPGs. And so I think usually if you're really just coming to it for the first time, really think about what is the closest comparison to this and that will drive the player expectations of it. And you don't have to do that, but you have to sort of internalize those expectations so that you can deal with them. BG3 was a very expensive game.
Yep. Yes, it was.
I think yesterday a lot of people were talking about like where's the AA version of BG3.
Is that even possible? Like,
so it's interesting because I guess we would say probably, although it's not BG3, but Expedition 33 budget wise is definitely falling into the AA range.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's AA. Yeah.
But like, I would say that realistically, like Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, I mean, people know what the Kickstarter, but those weren't the final budgets. I'm not going to say what those are, but I would say they're not even really AA. So going from Deadfire, which again, you can look up what was raised fig-wise for that. And we spent more than that. I'm not going to say what, but then compare it to numbers that have been floated around for BG3, and there's an enormous gap in there.
Yes.
So it would be interesting to see some studios. I'm sure there are studios that could do it, that could make a game that is in the AA range. It's not as crazy as BG3. Also, BG3 is humongous.
It's long.
And big. I think players, if you made a game that was like half that size, probably okay. But I do think, like, again, focusing on what are the expectations of the players, what are they going to be into, what are they going to be like really frowny face if you don't support. That's very important. And I do think RPGs are about kind of that range of play styles, range of character vibes, range of personality types. And sort of just figure that out and then vibe on it.
Vibe on it. You heard it. Vibe on it. Thank you so much for chatting with me. This was nice and fun.
Thank you for having me. It's great.
Anytime.